The water was still as glass when we launched the boat at dawn. Lake Mirrow stretched out before us, a vast expanse of dark water surrounded by dense pine forest. My brother Jake and I had been planning this fishing trip for months, just the two of us, like when we were kids, before life got complicated. Remember Dad's stories about this lake? Jake asked as he set up his rod. The one about the town at the bottom? I did remember. Our father had told us about Mirrow Falls, a small mining town that was deliberately flooded in 1952 to create the reservoir. According to local legend, they'd evacuated everyone. But some of the old-timers swore a few residents had refused to leave. Dad always laughed when he told it, dismissing it as a kind of campfire tale that grew with each retelling. Ghost stories. I said, rigging my line. You know Dad loved to embellish. Maybe, Jake said, but something in his tone made me look at him. He was staring down at the water with an odd expression. But you ever notice how nobody fishes the deep parts? Everyone stays near the shore. He was right. In all my years coming to Lake Mirrow, I'd never seen anyone venture into the center, where the water turned from green to an impenetrable black. The depth chart showed it dropped to nearly 200 feet in some spots. That's because the fish are near the structure, I said, trying to sound practical. Near the old shoreline, the submerged trees. The deep water's just deep. Jake shrugged and cast his line. Probably. Still feels weird, though. We fished in comfortable silence for an hour, catching nothing but enjoying the peace. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist. That's when Jake's rod bent violently. "I've got something," he shouted, struggling with the reel. "Something big." I grabbed the net, watching his line cut through the water. Whatever he'd hooked was running deep, pulling hard. Jake's arm strained as he fought it. "This doesn't feel like a fish," he grunted. "It's not fighting right. It's just pulling." The line went slack suddenly, and Jake stumbled backward. We both stared at the water, waiting for the tension to return, but nothing happened. "Lost it," Jake muttered, reeling in. When his hook broke the surface, we both froze. Attached it wasn't a fish, but a piece of rotted fabric. Dark, waterlogged cloth that might have once been part of dress or shirt. And tangled in it was something that made my stomach turn. A tarnished silver necklace with a small locket. "What the hell?" Jake whispered, carefully removing it from the hook. I wanted to tell him to throw it back, but curiosity won. He pried open the locket. Inside was a photograph, remarkably preserved despite the water damage. It showed a young woman, maybe in her 20s, smiling at the camera. Behind her was a building with a sign I could just barely make out. Mirrow Falls General Store. "This is from the old town," I said, my voice hushed. "Jake, this is from before the flood." He turned the locket over. On the back, engraved in flowing script, "Dorothy, forever in our hearts. 1952. A chill ran down my spine, despite the warm sun. 1952, the year they flooded the valley. "We should give this to someone," Jake said. "A museum or—" His words were cut off by a splash. We both turned toward the sound. About 50 feet from the boat, the water was disturbed, circles rippling outward as if something had just surfaced and gone back under. "Did you see that?" Jake asked. Before I could answer, it happened again, closer this time. Then again, and again, multiple disturbances in the water, forming a pattern that was moving toward us. "Start the engine," I said quietly. Jake moved the outboard motor, but when he pulled the cord, nothing happened. He tried again, and again. The engine was dead. The water disturbances had stopped. The lake was perfectly still again, but the silence felt oppressive now, threatening. I looked down at the water beside our boat and felt my breath catch. There was something just beneath the surface. A pale shape, humanoid but wrong somehow. As I watched, paralyzed with fear, it slowly rotated and I saw its face. It was a woman from the photograph, Dorothy, but her features were bloated, distorted by decades underwater. Her eyes were open, clouded white, and they were looking directly at me. Her mouth open in what might have been a scream or a greeting, revealing rows of teeth that seemed too sharp, too many. "Jake," I managed to whisper, "don't look down." But it was too late. He'd seen it too. We both scrambled backward as the shape began to rise, breaking the surface with a wet, sucking sound. Water streamed from what remained of her dress. The same fabric Jake had caught on his hook. "Give it back." The words came from everywhere and nowhere, a voice like wind through a drowned canyon. Give it back to the water. Jake's hand was still clenched around the locket. With shaking fingers, he held it out. "Take it. Please, just take it." The thing that had been Dorothy reached up with hands that were more bone than flesh. But instead of taking the locket, she pointed past us toward the dark water in the center of the lake. "There are more," she said. "They've been waiting." You opened the door. I turned to look where she was pointing and saw them. Dozens of pale shapes rising from the depths, breaking the surface one by one. Men, women, children. The entire population of Mirrow Falls, it seemed, preserved impossibly in the cold water for 70 years. "They told us we had to leave," Dorothy's voice continued, hypnotic and horrible. "But this was our home. So we stayed. We drank the water as it rose. We welcomed it into our lungs. We became part of the lake." The circle of waterlogged corpses was tightening around our boat. I grabbed the oars. But what good would rowing do against this? "We've been sleeping." Another voice joined in, this one from a man whose face was half-eaten by decay. "But you brought her back. You woke us up." "We didn't mean to." Jake shouted, "We'll put it back. We'll put everything back." "Too late," Dorothy said, and now she was close enough that I could smell her, mud and rot and deep water. "You've reminded us what was to be alive, what was to breathe air, to feel the sun." She reached out and touched the side of our boat with her skeletal fingers. Where she touched, the aluminum began to corrode, rust spreading like infection. "We want to remember," she said, "and you're going to help us." I made a decision then, born of pure survival instinct. I grabbed the locket from Jake's hand and threw it as far as I could into the deep water. "There, it's back. Leave us alone." For a moment, nothing happened. The dead of Mirrow Falls simply stared at us with their clouded eyes. Then, as one, they turned toward where the locket had splashed down. "The deep water," Dorothy said, her voice fading. "Yes, where we belong." One by one, they began to sink, not swimming, just descending straight down, pulled by some invisible force. Dorothy was the last to go, her eyes never leaving mine until the dark water closed over her face. The lake was still again. The sun shone. A bird called from the shore. It was as if nothing had happened, except the engine started on the first pull. We didn't speak as Jake piloted us back to shore. We didn't speak as we loaded the boat onto the trailer, or during the 2-hour drive home. What could we say? Who would believe us? It was only when we pulled into my driveway that Jake finally broke the silence. "We're not going back there." "No," I agreed. "Never." But that night, I dreamed of cold water filling my lungs. I dreamed of descending into darkness, past drowned houses and sunken cars, down to where the street lamps of Mirrow Falls still stood in the silt. In my dream, I could see lights in the windows of those submerged buildings, figures moving behind the glass. And I dreamed of Dorothy, standing in the doorway of the general store, beckoning me deeper. I woke gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat that smelled faintly of lake water. The next morning, I saw the news. A diver had disappeared in Lake Mirrow. They'd been exploring the submerged town, taking pictures for a documentary about the flooding. The last transmission from their underwater camera showed something the news anchors struggled to explain. Lights in the windows of the drowned buildings. And figures. Lots of figures. The search for the diver was called off after 3 days. Too dangerous, they said. The underwater currents were unpredictable. The visibility was poor. But I knew the truth. Mirrow Falls had a new resident. A week later, Jake called me at 3 a.m. "I can't stop thinking about it," he said, his voice strained. "About them. About the water. I keep wanting to go back." "Don't," I said firmly, though I felt it too, a pull like a current in my mind, always tugging me toward that dark lake. "Jake, you can't go back." "I know," he whispered, "but what if they won't let us leave? What if we're already part of it?" I had no answer for that, because every morning when I woke up, my pillow was damp. Every night, I dreamed of descending deeper and deeper into those dark waters. And sometimes when I looked in the mirror, I swore my eyes were cloudier than they used to be. The doctors say it's PTSD. Anxiety. They've given me pills that don't work, and therapy sessions where I can't tell the truth. How do you explain to a therapist that you're being slowly claimed by a drowned town? Jake doesn't answer my calls anymore. His wife told me he's been sleepwalking, always heading toward the bathroom, trying to fill the tub. She's locked the doors at night. I've moved away from any large bodies of water. I don't even take baths anymore, only quick showers. But I can feel it in every drop that touches my skin, the lake calling me back. They say the dead should stay buried. But what about the dead who were never buried? The ones who chose the water as their grave? What about when they decide they want company? I'm writing this down as a warning. If you ever go to Lake Mirrow, stay near the shore. Don't fish the deep water. And if you catch something that isn't a fish, throw it back immediately. Don't do what we did. Don't wake them up. Because the dead of Mirrow Falls are still down there waiting. And they're always hungry for the living to join them. Last night, I dreamed I was already there, standing on Main Street under 200 feet of water, and Dorothy was smiling at me. "Welcome home," she said. And the worst part? It felt like she was right.